Hey, ladies, welcome to another episode of the Revitalized Womanhood Podcast. And I am here today with Maddy Fero, the beautiful founder, creator, owner of LRT, Little Rad Things, Kids Apparel. And how did I not find you sooner? I have 3 boys. This is seriously one of those things that every single boy mom in the entire world is like, where are the cool boy clothes? Seriously.
They are. And I mean, really, that's how this started. First off, thank you for having me. I am stoked to be here. And second off, holy cow, like you are so sweet to say that we are what everyone's looking for. I back in 2020 had my first son and during COVID was going insane, working a corporate job and took to sewing really as my outlet. And that's where it all started. So it came out of.
I love that.
Yeah, it came out of not being able to find cool clothes. So
that's so cool. But do you know what? Actually, if you look into the origin story of a lot of things, like a lot of the cool brands that we love, like Freshly Picked, Dawn, or Fawn, not Dawn, Fawn Design. What else? A lot of these really, really cool companies, Cosmetics, really came from. There was nothing out in the market that these moms were looking for. And they're like, well, I'm going to create it. And so you are part of that. You are part of that industry. So that is so cool. So tell me a little bit about, so you said this was born of COVID and you started sewing as an outlet. What did that look like in your life right then? What was going on?
yeah, it was honestly crazy. I worked for a fitness franchise. I was a franchise business coach. So I was coaching around 60 fitness gym owners how to retain members during the pandemic. And my normal job was really fun because it was always strategy and talking numbers and business. And then COVID hit and it was like suddenly I turned into almost more of a therapist than an actual business coach. And there was just so much stress on, will I have a job next month myself? Like, will corporate keep me on to coach these gyms that are just losing members left and right because their facilities are closed?
Right.
So I spent a lot of my days carrying a lot of stress. And then you add on top of that a husband that typically travels with NASCAR every single weekend of the year, practically. He's suddenly home, not traveling, not working in a race shop, and just like tinkering, around the house all day. So you can picture
I
it.
think every wife in the world is just like, yeah, get him out of the house, get him out of the house, get him out of the house.
Yeah. So I, just had so much going on and I had the sewing machine in the closet. I've always been a very creative person that alleviates stress either between like going to the gym and working out or doing something creative. Painting, like I have a painting in the background if you're on video, drawing, you name it, like that really helps me. And so at the time I was like, I'm going to bust out this sewing machine my mom bought me for Christmas, and I'm just going to try to figure out how to make some stuff for my son. And that's really where it started. I started like teaching myself how to sew little shorts and little overalls and being a proud first-time mom. I did what all first-time moms do. I'm like, let me post him on Instagram. And I started having like not only close connections, but some people from college I hadn't talked to in nearly a decade message me and be like, this is really cool. Will you make me something for my kids? And that's when my husband was like, hello, maybe you should stop being the business coach and have your own business. And that's really what kickstarted the journey.
Did it? Good man. Good for him. Because there are a lot of husbands that I think, well, I don't think, I know because I run a women's community and I talk to women all day long. And there are the husbands out there that for whatever reason poo-poo on these kind of ideas. Like it's already saturated. The market's already saturated or even an insecurity in them that they would lose your time because now instead of focusing on being the wife and the mother, you're focusing your energy on this new business and this endeavor. And husbands know that that's going to take a lot of time. But I really am so proud of him for encouraging you to do this. Had you even considered it until that? Or were you just like thinking like a normal mom and wife and woman and thinking, I couldn't do that because this will affect my family. I couldn't do this because this will affect my time with my husband.
Yeah, I mean, I had never considered being a business owner before. I truthfully, before I started working for the fitness franchise, didn't know that much about entrepreneurship. I came from a family where my mom was a stay-at-home mom for years. My dad was an educator. We were not raised to like take these crazy financial risks. Like it was very much like by the book, you go to school and you get a corporate career and you climb the corporate ladder. So that wasn't even an idea to me at the time. But my husband, he is amazing. I will say I'm very blessed. He is the risk taker and he brings out the best in me, sees so much potential in me. He was like, you need to do this. Like, we'll figure it out, take it day by day, but like, you're smart enough. Like, you can go into this and you work hard enough that like, we can start something from this and you're not going to fail.
That is just proof right there that there is so much to be said about the people you surround yourself with and who you have cheering you on, who's in your cheering section. And it's so important. So for women, I think it is so sad when they feel frustrated or upset or down or whatever, and they isolate. Like the natural thing for us is to go inward when really we should be seeking community. We should be seeking these people that will cheer us on, that will help us through it. It's kind of like, I like to say, if you isolate and you try to take all of this burden on for yourself, right? And like you're a martyr, like you're falling on your sword for it. You don't want to burden anyone else with it. So you're going to take this all on yourself. But if you imagine sharing one tiny little piece of that with someone else, you offer that weight to them as well. They take that from you and you're not burdened with so much of it on your own. So the comparison of that is just like baffling to me that women don't see it that way, that we instantly think, no, I'm going to keep this to myself. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to just lock it up. What is your advice to women that would feel that way, that would go into that place?
I would say give it time and seek multiple opinions potentially. Like I know for me, it didn't happen overnight. So I hope no one is listening and thinking like, oh, her husband told her to do that and she did it. That's not at all the case. Like it took weeks of him like reiterating it, me telling the idea to some of my closest friends. I even told, ironically, my boss at the time that I was working for that it was an idea that I had. And she was amazing and supportive and was like, you should do this. Like, you should seriously consider doing this. So I think you have to really be willing to just like share and take feedback from everybody. And that's honestly a principle I believe in my business 100% too. And I do all the time. Like, I'm constantly asking my customers as well, like, what do you want from me? Like, what do you want to see from Little Rad Things? How can we make Little Rad Things better? How can we serve you better? Like, giving people what they want and like taking all the opinions for what it is, I think is a really good way to pull out of that reserve of like, feeling small or keeping something to yourself.
And that's a beautiful way of growing personally, your personal growth development, because you're asking for this and you're going to get some things back. And even just being out there, period. We all know there's negativity and just whatever, but you have to be able to look through and say, okay, that is constructive. I can take that. I can appreciate that this person says that I didn't like this about this thing. Maybe if you adjusted it to this, I can hear that. But people who are not secure enough, who are not, that would be very offensive. I think people who are going to be offended are going to be offended. They take it on as a personal attack rather than listening. So I think that's really great and brave of you and growth mindset of you to be able to say, hey, you know what? I know that I'm one mind. I am one mama. This works for me. That doesn't necessarily mean it works for everybody. Have you had tons of because I've seen your stuff and I think it's just freaking adorable. So I don't, but I've also haven't bought anything or used anything. So I don't have much of an opinion, but has there been anything that you were like, oh my gosh, someone pointed this out. That was incredible. Like I never even saw that. Thank you for that.
Oh yeah. It happens all the time. All the time. Like we could have I mean, most recently we had a pair of joggers that were absolutely amazing, but on the smaller sizes with kids that can't fully, stand and walk very well. If their child's scooting on their butt on certain surfaces, it'll
Oh,
cause the jogger material to pull. My kids aren't small enough anymore to where they're scooting on their butt. Like, there's just different things that arise all the time that, somebody who has a different brain, their brain works differently than me, they see something. And quite honestly, to go back to my spouse and our marriage, if you're hearing me talk about how wonderful he is in a lot of ways because his brain is so different from mine. I am the creative. He is the meticulous analytical side of us. And I mean, like, we'll get a shipment in and he'll take his measuring tape out. And I always joke that that's like his favorite toy because he is like down to the 1/16th of an inch on certain things. So there are a lot of times he and I disagree. And I'll design something that I think my moms are going to sell out, and he absolutely hates it. So it's just always you always have to be able to take feedback, and I think the biggest thing to circle back to what you initially asked, Gina, is when you're looking to start something or you're questioning, I think, like, that self-reassurance, I like to look at stuff nowadays as, like, am I going to feel fulfilled doing what
mm,
I'm doing? And I think in a lot of ways that's helped me with Little Rad Things. It's helped me get into this season now where like I work solely on Little Rad Things. That was really hard for me this year. I had always had a job while trying to grow the business, and this year finally I took a step back, and it was hard for me to do it, but understanding how fulfilled the business makes me feel, like it's been so worth it. So,
I am so glad you pointed that out. My husband actually just said that on that Zoom call he was running before I jumped on here with you. And so he's a financial coach in his community, and he had a kid reach out to him, and he wants to be a pilot. So he's going through and trying to earn money to get his pilot's license and pay for that. And my husband said to him, well, what would, if you had $10 million, would you still want to be a pilot and get paid for that? And he said, well, not as a job, not as to be a pilot. And he says, there's a shortcut here. You don't need to go this route to do it. You don't have to be going through the school and the courses and everything to be a commercial airline pilot when really you want to be a private pilot. There's an entrepreneurship, there's a business here. So helping him see that. And that's exactly what you pinpointed on there. It's like sitting down and saying, if I was making no money from this, would I still want to do this? That's a perfect answer for anybody that's either getting into business or that's still trying to hustle in a business, to look at it and think, if I had to do this for free, would I continue to do this?
yeah. And honestly, that's a lot of business ownership in the beginning. You're hustling for
Oh, yep.
nothing.
It's all free.
Yeah. And you're working 10 times harder than you would at a corporate job for
Mm-hmm.
nothing. But I think that's where within business too, you have to have such a vision and passion for it. Like for me, I can see where Little Rad Things is going to be 10 years from now. And that's like all my eyes are focused on is like, how do I just keep doing the scalable things every day that are going to get us there and let us impact? Right now we've impacted over 22,000 families. Like, how do we get to 1 million families? And,
Mm-hmm.
not only help them by giving them really cool clothes for their children, but how do we provide sustainable, healthy fashion for them? How do we increase our reach in our community and donations? Like, there are so many different layers to it that makes me feel fulfilled and makes me hustle for nothing, right? To an extent.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I know the whole time I'm like, Nordstrom, Nordstrom, Nordstrom. I'll just subliminally put that in there for you. Nordstrom. The website, the SEO keywords will pick it up and we'll get this podcast to them
One day, one day.
one day. How do you find balance between motherhood and, because now you said you are fully focused, because before you had not only motherhood, being a wife and Little Rad Things, but you had a job as well. But now, okay, so you got to get rid of one. How do you find the balance?
Yeah. I mean, I could go full spectrum for you and tell you that when I had a full-time job, there was a balance and I don't want to say unhealthy for me, but it was very difficult for the
Mm.
time I was doing both. I think I needed to do both, quite honestly, for the time frame, but it was really hard. I think 3 years in now, I do a really good job of waking up early and trying to hit it and grind before my kids wake up. I try to black out the hours that they're around and not focus on it as much, but we have a rule in our house where it's really like when my husband is home, if he can be fully present with our children, then, like, I can still sneak off to the office and do some work because at least they're getting that full spectrum attention from one of us.
Sure.
But it's really a matter of, like, just blocking out hours and working later in the evenings, working in the mornings, and I also 3 years in now have a good perspective of, like, there are certain things that I used to treat as a 911 emergency that are absolutely not. Unless it's, like, super revenue impacting, it's not something that I can't put down and do at a later time or do tomorrow, so really trying every day to prioritize the things that actually move the needle in the business that I can get done when my kids aren't around, and then if it doesn't get done, it just waits, quite honestly.
I love you had a post that I just saw today actually while I was just scrolling through, and it said your biggest competition is not the competition, it's your procrastination. And that just hits so perfectly on habits and building habits. And what are some of the habits that you've had to really just hone in on to make sure that you're not overburdening yourself and like so that you end up being this hag to your family. You give them the rest of you basically, not the best of you, right? So what
Yeah.
habits have you just totally honed in on?
Yeah, well, number 1, it's annoying, is I wake up at 4:30 every single morning. There is very rarely a morning I don't make myself wake up that early just because if I allow myself to have a day to sleep in on a random Sunday, then it's even that much harder to get up at 4:30 the next day.
Mhm.
So I'm very habitual about waking up at a certain hour. I'm very habitual about living by a calendar and trying to keep my calendar as exact as possible so that I get to those priorities every day. Those are probably the 2 biggest things for me is just prioritizing time, but I can't say that it's easy. Every day is different. In entrepreneurship, you are always ping-ponging around. So
Right.
it's doing my best early in the day and then just making the most as I can before, nighttime comes and my brain is fried.
Well, the early in the day stuff is people don't realize that there's a certain part of the day and it's obviously it's different for most people. Mine is 4:30 in the morning as well. Like if I can't sleep, it's probably even earlier. It's like I've caught myself at 3 a.m. like if I wake up randomly and I can get out like newsletters, like content. I just sit there and I can just da 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 da. And there was a guy on a reel, I don't know who it is, one of the business coaches, but he said working 8 hours is not as productive as we think, which totally sat with me because when I very first started this community, my husband said, "Okay, okay, you go do this. I'll be a stay-at-home dad." Whatever. So I went and got an office and I had my studio and I'd go in at 8:30 and like the 9 to 5, I would have it. And you really now my studio's in my bedroom because he's like, "No, you got to come home. I'm done doing this." So my studio is like a nursery and my bedroom and I've got kids and but you know what it made me do is it made me really, really focus and zone in on, like you're saying, the what's going to move the needle versus if you're sitting in an office for 8 hours, it's wasted. It really is. It becomes just like twiddling your fingers and like, now what can I do? Now it's like you're forcing yourself to find random things to do to fill the time when really it's like when you have 3 hours to do something, it's like, okay, I've got 3 hours. This is what's got to happen in those 3 hours.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I couldn't agree more with your sentiment of there are certain times in the day our brain just fires better than others. Like for me, that morning is my sweet spot. During the day while my kids at school is great. But I typically know too, if I'm not done what I need to get done by 4:30 when kids are home from school and it's, we're inching up on dinner time, like if I do sit down to work on something at 8 o'clock, like I better not hit send. Like, I better recheck and like rescan the next day because my brain at that point is just not the
Fried.
same.
Oh my heck, that's so true. How did you and maybe this isn't you, but most women, and especially raised to see how stay-at-home moms raising kids, having families, are people pleasers. It's like a nurturing thing that we fall into that society's kind of conditioned us to think that we have to do everything. We have to say yes to everything. We have to please everyone, all of these things. Did you find it hard, or what were your tricks to creating boundaries and saying no to things and not having to have everybody happy all the time?
That is a great question. Yes and no. I married a introvert, so he doesn't like to go out. I think that helps. Um,
You can just blame it all on him.
like,
He said no.
all
Sorry.
my success and failures, it's him. Both ends of the spectrum. No, I don't know. I've always had pretty good boundaries. I'm not gonna lie about that. Like, I've always had a good idea of what type of behavior will drive success. And, a lot of my friends, I'm very fortunate at this point in my life, are also doing something that's similar in terms of entrepreneurship, whether it be real estate or like local party planning. So I'm surrounded by people who are really aiming to high achieve. And so oftentimes they're not out just goofing off. And I think you get into that season with children too, where it becomes very hard to go and do things. And, for me, my husband travels, like I said, a ton. So to have a babysitter or somebody to go out, it's not as easy for me. So I think that's helped me a lot. Um, if I was younger and doing this, my answer would totally be different because I think it would be very easy for me to get sidetracked and like pulled out, and it would be hard to have those boundaries. I'm just at a place in my life where, fortunately, as a mom, like I'm at home and I'm with my kids a lot. So it helps me stay very grounded and focused. But I also see the benefit of being stubborn and understanding that whatever I'm missing out on right now, whether it be like a dinner party or something, like, that will still be here in 5 years when I have better systems, more flexibility, I'm in a bigger spot in my business, but those moments, like, if it's really, really worthwhile, I'll make the time, but for just an average Tuesday, like, I have a higher standard than that, and it's
Yeah.
not gonna happen.
How has that helped you, do you think, with your customers?
Ooh. With my customers, I think what's awesome and bad about my personality is I am a people pleaser with my customers. So it's hard in the business aspect as I'm always going above and beyond if something is wrong or something is needed. Um, which is great for business, honestly. I think for me, just sometimes it's hard even if I don't necessarily agree with what's wrong, like understanding that it's best served just to move forward anyway. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's actually perfect because it's your customer service, It's not necessarily people pleasing, it is customer service, and that does border into tipping toes into the people pleasing, but really it's recognizing it goes back to the criticism thing and being able to take someone's opinion and say, "Hey, maybe even if I'm not seeing this, this is something that's affecting them and I'm going to make it right." And I really love that. I actually appreciate that because I've been wanting to start that stupid, what's it called? Aleveda, whatever skincare that's like going crazy. The pyramid of that is going crazy, right, in the marketing. But it seems like a really good product. So I've been wanting to try it. So finally I break down, and it's not cheap, right? This is not like I'm sitting down and spending $50. My cart, it was like $300. And it took time to research because it's all like F21 and S42 and it's all these numbers. They're not names. You have no idea what anything is. So I've got like pie graphs to try to tell me what's what. So I order this. Well, like 4 hours later, because it was like midnight and I'm in bed, like, like trying to like a beautiful mind this system and this order. And so like 4 hours later, it goes on to this Black Friday. Well, if you spend this amount of money, you get this one free, which is like a $60, $70 thing. It's not like little. But so I was like, oh crap. Sent the company an email and just said, hey, I just sent that. Can you just chuck that in there with that? Can you see that I just placed this huge order and just gone and chuck that in there? And they said, no, cancel the order and redo it. And I'm like, okay, I did this at midnight last night. Like everybody was asleep. I'm a mom. I don't have time to do this again. I don't want to sit down and have to write down. I'm like, really? That's your answer to that? And it was in that moment that I was like, you know what? No. And I turned and I found this small business, Boise Tonic Co. up in Boise, Idaho. And I'm like, hey, let's check your stuff out. It was a referral from another, do you know Walker Family Goods?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, she posted something on there and I'm like, boom, mama owned, local, small business. Yep. And that was exactly what made me go, you will not get my money. You will.
Yeah. Customer service is huge. And I mean, in some regard, it's people pleasing, but it's also just understanding that as a business, like you have to serve and you have to bend, like no matter what. Like, I think for me, that's something that has been hard and has felt like people pleasing at times because sometimes I'm like, am I bending too much? Like, am I giving too much
Well,
away?
sometimes it might feel like abuse.
Correct. But in your case, I mean, as a business, that is the most easy thing to solve for somebody, you
It
know?
is. It wasn't even like processed yet. And I said that too. I was like, can you just take a look? I mean, chuck it on in there. Just bink.
Yep.
Anyway, well, so I have a lot of moms who we were actually talking about this a lot on our call. We have a weekly call in our community, and we talked a lot about this on Wednesday night. And it's the feeling of not deserving to do things for yourself. Not and even if you don't acknowledge that that's the connection, is that you're not deserving, but you're not allowing for the time to take the time to sew, to take the time to create, to take the time to sing, to take the time to whatever it is you do, to take the time to do it, to schedule out 10 dang minutes in a day is not a selfish thing, but they do feel that it is. It's like, so this one gal was talking about she wants to really get into woodworking, and her husband's supportive of it. And he's like, I got the kids. But yet she gets going in it and she still feels this tug and this mom guilt of, no, I'll come make dinner. No, I'll come. And he's saying, go do it. But she's like, no. And I'm like, because you're not allowing that this is a good thing for you. You're thinking, I'm being a bad wife or I'm being a bad mom. How have you ever come up against that? And if you had, how did you get past it?
I've definitely come up against that. I would say I still struggle with that today. I'm just blessed that I view what I do for work now as me time, even as
Mhm.
stressful as it is. Like, I'm
Right.
so blessed to do what I'm passionate about. But, I think the biggest thing is understanding, can you be the best mom you can be if you're not taking care of yourself? Like I think for me, where I really struggled with it was postpartum with my second son,
Mhm.
Jackson. I felt very disconnected from my body. I was, launching little rad things at the time. It was a very stressful season for me. And really, like, David was the one that was like, "You need to start going to a gym again." Because at that time, like, I had left my corporate career with the fitness franchise, transitioned to a different role, so I wasn't working out with them anymore. Because I typically at corporate would go to the gym at lunchtime with my colleagues, and now I was working from home, and so I was just like, "Oh, I'll work out at home by myself," and I was
Mhm.
so secluded. And I mean, really, like for me, it was like the kick in the pants to go back to a community and something that brings me joy that helped me get out of it. So I would just look at it from the frame of reference of like, can you be the best mom you can be if you're never taking care of yourself and never doing anything for yourself?
Yeah.
I don't feel that way when I don't take care of myself. Like, if I miss the gym, I'm in the worst mood ever. Like, that is my time, my 45 minutes to go be around other people I enjoy, to punish myself because I enjoy that. But I mean, and if your husband's covering it, like, let go. I think as a mom, it's such a good thing to let go of certain things too, as hard as that can be. Like, I went on my first trip on an airplane without my kids this October.
Isn't it the best thing ever?
It was, and it was, like, so sad to drop them off at their grandma's and, like, know that that was the first time they were doing a sleepover at my mom's house, but I was like, "You know what? I'm alive, I'm an adult, my mom will be fine." Like, as
You
much
have
as
to like isn't it sad we have to like totally prepare ourselves for all of these things? Like, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine.
it's gonna be fine, and then as soon as I was gone, I was like, "I can go for a walk to Starbucks alone."
My husband knows we go on like we'll go on trips together because we're a travel family. I don't know if you looked at that, but we're a travel family. So for the last 8 years, we've traveled to over 68 countries with our kids. So that means 1 kid, 2 kid, 3 kids. We've had our kids with us pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the better part of 8 years. So when we get to go on a trip together or when I get to go, we prioritize those things. We know how important it is to prioritize boys' trips, to prioritize mom's trips, prioritize. But yeah, that's like my most favorite thing in the world because the airplane for me is like that day for us is the most stressful day for sure. And I'm just, doing all the things. And so when it gets to be just me, it's just like, "Ah." It's like the
Yeah.
best feeling in the world. And I think maybe if we could like tap into that feeling, like I know what that feels like. When you said it, I smiled. I instantly had the feeling, the emotion, the why behind it. It kicked in. So I think if more women would allow themselves to open up to this and start, yeah, I mean, really, it's getting out of a comfort zone. Unfortunately, to say that, it really is. And to let yourself start doing it more often, practicing it, okay, so today you go get a coffee by yourself. It's 30 minutes, if even. Today you go to a gym class by yourself. Today you go for a walk by yourself, right? Just kind of like baby step it in and start to see how that's affecting you. There you go. Then you can tap back into that feeling and recognize that's what's doing this. So I need to do more of that. And I think, like you said, with postpartum, I had a similar journey with my third baby, and he was a COVID baby. And so everything that goes into that. And that was what made me think, who am I? What am I doing as a woman, right? I have a good life. I don't have a bad life. I'm not sitting here saying I hate my life or anything like that. But I was like, there's more. There's something more. And it's because I hadn't been connecting into my creativity. I hadn't been connecting into the woman rather than the labels, the mom, the wife, the whatever else I was. So how I want to talk about your post. I saw in here that you started running. Ick, but good for you. And you said it became a way to find myself. Like what is that journey like? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was honestly very into running prior to having children. It was something that I found. My dad passed away when I was 18 pretty suddenly from cancer, and running was something I kind of found to help me just not think, as crazy as
Mhm.
that sounds. Like, I would go on runs and get really deep into my thoughts, but also like feel better. It became a therapy. And when I got pregnant and met my husband, that kind of stopped. Even though he's a runner too, we moved out to the country, out of the city, and, like, it just becomes harder to find places to run that's safe. And yeah, after 2 kids, just stopped. And I recently was like, I need to get back into this. I need to feel like myself again. I need that mental clarity. And so I picked it back up after our second, and it was really hard. Like for anyone that needs motivation to plant a tree now, like it's never too late, because for me getting back into running, it was really humbling to go out and, like, struggle to run 3 miles when I used to run half marathons in my 20s.
Mhm.
Um, but I've been working on it, and I set a goal to run another half marathon this fall, and I did it, and I ran one of my best times ever. I didn't beat my best time ever, but for having 2 toddlers and a career and just being busy, to be
Right.
able to do that felt really, really good for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that. I think that's such a win. That's incredible. I am the queen of starting over. I think I talk about that a lot. I think especially where because we leave and we go travel for long stretches, so we don't have a gym or we don't or when we start thinking about it, we'll book places with swimming pools so we know we can swim laps or this last 6 months we did we every morning with all of our kids did the 50-50-50, which ended up being the 100 but 50 crunches, 50 squats, 50 push-ups. So we ended up doing that. But that's very, then you get back to a gym class and you're like, huh, huh, like everybody's kicking your butt, right? So I'm the queen of starting over. And then especially a C-section. You have a C-section when you've never had this before, especially when you are a fitness person. And I remember laying on the floor trying to do my friend's postpartum challenge or whatever course, and I couldn't even do a crunch. And my mind is sitting here going, you can do this. What are you doing? You dum-dum. This is like the easiest thing you could possibly do. What's wrong with you? And I'm shaming myself and going through this horrible abuse, abusing myself. And my body's like, yeah, right. You're not doing a crunch. And so I think that a lot of people in those moments will just quit, will just give up. So what are some tips that you would have for women in those moments to push
To
past
know
that?
Yeah, to know that you're stronger than whatever your mind's telling you. I mean, obviously, with a C-section or certain things, there are limitations, but your body will heal over time. And you just have to give it grace and understand that compounding days stack up. I think in a lot of ways, my journey postpartum and in life has really helped me in business ownership, because I've really come to learn, like, if you do things consistently enough, like, it does compound over time, whether it be business, weight loss, running, like, it all just compounds. Um, but yeah, it is hard. You just have to get started, and you have to give yourself grace and stack wins where you can to continue to grow and blossom, truly.
I love the stacking wins. Celebrate everything. Like I am such a fan of celebrating everything. We're such a society of people that think that if I set a goal, I can't celebrate until I hit that goal. And it's like the goal is just something that's there to help you become this cool person along the way. So if you're allowing yourself to celebrate all of these cool little things that are happening along the way, the goal, it may never even happen. Maybe the goal never happens, but the bigger picture is the cool stuff that's happened along the way. What has been one of the most rewarding moments of creating this business? Like where it been, actually I'm going to separate this into two questions. So yeah, go with that. What's been the most rewarding?
That is such a hard question, Gina, because I could say 2 things to this.
You can say 10 things if you
I
want. I don't care.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, getting to see my son grow with the business and getting to see him perceive the business from beginning to now has been so amazing. I mean, a couple weeks ago, we had a record-setting Black Friday. My son got to see, like, all these orders and see the notifications go off, and he's only 5, but he
Cute.
just is so observant. And that night, we put him to bed, and I told him, I always like to tell him after prayer, like, "I'm very proud of you today, Pax. Like, you've had a great day." And he hugged me and said, "I'm so proud of your rad things, mommy." And it just made me want to, makes me want to cry right now because
That is awesome.
you don't, in the moment, a 5-year-old's brain is like ping ponging all over the place. One minute it's like he wants to write, the next minute he wants to watch Danny go or like talk about monster trucks. So I never like really take in him seeing and understanding what's happening. I don't think he does fully understand what's happening, but just to hear those words, that's so amazing. Um, but the second part to that answer is seeing my customers blossom and see their families grow has been so special. Like I have some customers who have been with us since 2021. And I mean, I've watched them go from having a baby to now having 2 or 3.
Right.
I just have seen some moms and gotten to know them go through their IVF struggles and successes, and to be a support system for those women and those families is such a blessing. Like it's so much more than just clothing. And that is what makes me really proud is knowing that we're doing something here that is impactful and we're creating community and relationships, and it's not just about slinging t-shirts.
That's the second time you've said community, and I love it a lot because I am an advocate for community. My husband is an advocate for community. Community is so important. I don't understand why people don't recognize that. I mean, and especially coming out of the pandemic, realizing how isolated we all got and what that made us all feel like. It's like we need people. We need to network. What is so scary about putting yourself out there and just saying hello, just seeing like one of our favorite things to do is if you see someone wearing their cute little vet hat, say thank you for your service. Like they're wearing that hat so proudly, right? They did something amazing. And so go out of your way and stop being so like in your own zone, or what are they going to think of me? Or one of my favorites is when you see one of those mamas at the store that either A, look like they are just in it, right? And being like, you have got this, okay? Or how can I help you? Or can I it's kind of, I'm the weirdo that's like, do you want me to hold your baby while you do this? Like what? I'm the weirdo. But or someone that looks like they actually took like a lot of time or put more effort in this mama at the store and saying, oh my gosh, you look so cute today. You look so put together. Because how does that make her feel? Because especially, I know I used to be this trendy. I actually wore something more hip for you today, specifically. Because I am a nerdy old mom now, and I wear just my workout clothes all the time. But to see, I appreciate it when someone goes above and beyond, because I know how hard that is. I know what that looks like, especially working with all of these women in my community. So it's like, just get out of your own head worrying about that people are thinking about you, because guess what? They're not. They're really not. We're all too busy worrying about ourselves. And make someone else's day. Get out there, make your community, find your people. I love that you've done that. I love that you've created this community. That's so incredible. So now back to my part 2 of that. Through this entrepreneurship, where have you grown the most as a human being, as a person?
Oh my goodness, in every which way. Like I am, how have I not grown?
Is there something that you're like, I remember I would have never been this way before this, or?
I shouldn't pause so long on a podcast, but
you can pause as long as you want. We have this really cool thing that edits it out.
I know. I'm trying to think of like what would be the most relatable way that I've grown, other than I think my intentionality with people has totally changed since starting this entrepreneurial journey. Like I value every moment, whether it be with my children or with, you mentioned community. I honestly hate the word customer. I'm like, someday I want to come up with my own little like rad term for somebody who shops with us other than customer.
Right.
I just hate that word. I think it's so harsh. But intentionality with customers and And like we were talking about, trying to build relationships, like I go out of my way when somebody takes the time to tag us on Instagram with a photo of their little one. Like, I try to go through once a week and shoot those people messages, like video messages of me saying thank you, like for doing this. Like, I'm
Right.
glad you're here. So just I feel like my intention and quality with people has changed so much. And a big example of that I can give that's pretty personal is like I've gone on a journey this year of completely cutting alcohol out of my life. Like it was something that at the end of last year I looked at and was like, okay, I don't have the healthiest relationship with this. I think I use it in a lot of ways to numb my emotions or feelings about
Mhm.
things. And I mean, that's completely changed my life this year. I've never been more present in every single moment since probably I was 17 before my dad left my life. So, um, I've grown in so many ways through this journey. So, if you're somebody who's thinking about following your passions, I would totally encourage you to do it, even if it's hard to step out and put yourself out there. But as you mentioned, Gina, like no one is thinking of you and judging you nearly as much as you're judging yourself. Everybody else is way too concerned with themselves to worry that much about you in the moment.
Totally. Sorry, I was just gonna say I have some accounts. I like want to connect you. My poor brain. Like I have this like bridge person brain that's always constantly like, oh, I need to get her with her. I need to hook her up with her. I need to,
Mm.
But how have you found in that so this journey this year with being more present and allowing that, because it is a form of escape, right? Having a drink is a form of escape. That's why we have a glass of wine at night to unwind. It's why we have a sleeping pill to help us go to bed. It's like they're forms of escape. And what I love focusing on is creating a life that you don't feel like you need to escape something. So this year, this last year, but this year for my community, our word has been ease. Like finding the ease, slowing down. How have you been more mindful? What tricks have you been implementing or habits to be more mindful about the fact that, like we talked about, you can get the same amount of stuff done if you create the time and you're intentional about it so that you're not in this hustle, this like, I have to do all the things, and you can create more intentionality around being present and the moments.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, cutting alcohol out of my life has given me so much more time because I feel like there were plenty of days where I'd be stressed and I'd be like, "Oh, I need to have a drink with dinner just to relax and hang out with my husband," versus like actually sit down and enjoy a nice meal and enjoy my food and my children and my husband, have meaningful conversation. Um, I think, just really assessing like how can I be most present and just enjoy these moments because I won't get them back. And especially, I think, in frame of reference with children, right? Time is so fast. I'm sure it doesn't
Yeah.
ever feel like it when you're pregnant, like you are right now. It feels like it takes forever. But then you blink and suddenly they're walking. And then the next thing you know, they're trying to read. Like, I cannot believe that my oldest is 5 now and he's learning to read and he knows math and all these crazy things about the world already. And it makes you realize how precious just every second is. And I just think whether you have kids or not, just finding ways to get done what you need to get done during the day early in the day so that with that flex time, you can focus on yourself and your health. And the more you start to get things in line, I think what's also amazing is the more you start to see things move in a positive direction to give you even more time, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Where did the name come from? Little Rad Things.
It's so bizarre, but I kept like dreaming that that was going to be the name for my business.
You did? Like
Yeah.
how? Tell me a dream. Like how did this come to you?
I just kept thinking like what would be cool for kids' clothes, and like my husband's from the West Coast, like has very unique style, and
Yeah.
It's like, well, kids are little and I want them to be rad. Like, that's just kind of how it came about. Like, I wish I could say there was some really cool backstory behind it, but it was just something that I thought about and was like, this could be cool. And me and my husband would talk about ideas. And then finally, I had enough nights where I went to bed thinking about it that it was like, okay, I think this is the name. And then, of course, as we've grown and evolved and our brand story has grown, like we've kind of merged into like shortening it to LRT, which is fun for actually adults to wear too. And it has kind of that retro like edge to it that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. And, for us, one of our catchphrases that we like to say is like, do rad things, embrace rad moments. So it all kind of intertwines with like that little rad things, little rad moments mentality.
How have we not crossed before? We're like the same family. We're like-
I just have to keep finding my audience. I
You
think that's the thing. We're
do.
still I have to you said about celebrating every single win and goal. That is something that I am bad at. And I know that. Like, I am not somebody that's like, yeah, go me. And I probably won't be that way when we're huge, even. It's just my personality type. But
Oh,
I
you
just
need a
think
hype girl.
I
I'm
do.
glad your husband is your hype girl then. Because I just got off a podcast actually yesterday recording with this gal that she's a New York Times bestselling author. She's doing women's events around the country and whatever. And I started talking about, as a founder of a women's community, how women look at celebrating themselves as braggy or yucky or icky. I don't know if it's been conditioned in us, that if we talk about ourselves, but you hear your husband and his buddies, and it's like, they want to talk about everything they've done. They want every accomplishment noticed. They want a pat on the back for everything. They're going to make sure that they unloaded the dishwasher, mowed the lawn, took the garbage out, changed the tires on the car. I don't care. They want acknowledgement for everything, right? And women, and a lot of this is very, very becoming full circle for me because I have 3 boys. I'm having a little girl now. So this is up to me. She is up to me now to not allow these kind of conditioned concepts. And for women, it's like, so this woman I was recording with, she says, have you ever heard Mel Robbins introduce herself? If you go to her podcast, it is like, I am Mel Robbins. I am the expert in change. I am a this blah, blah, blah author. She lists off her accolades. And she is and it's not off-putting. It's empowering. And so this gal, she says, and mine's been like, hey, y'all, hey, blah, what's up? That's mine too. I was like, whatever. But she said, it just encouraged me that this is not a bad thing. We have to get it out of our heads. We have to shake out of this, that it's a bad thing to be proud of ourselves and to celebrate ourselves. And it's like, I was opening presents. I'm 42 years old and I'm sitting there opening presents in front of everybody at the baby shower. And I'm like, this is the most uncomfortable. I'm not an uncomfortable person. Like, I usually am just fine with the attention. I'm like, this feels weird. Everybody, I'll just take these home. And they're like, no, we want to see. And I'm just like, ah. And I thought, we need to normalize being 42 and opening gifts. Like that it's a good thing to be getting gifts. And that's the same thing with being proud of ourselves and cheering ourselves on. So here's my challenge for you. I want you to create some, not necessarily goals, but things that you look at as wins that are in your future that you're looking towards. And I want you to set up exactly how you want to celebrate when those wins happen.
That's a good challenge.
Yep.
Because
there's your challenge.
I already know my goal for this coming year, so I'll work on that.
Okay, I want like 2 a month though. I'm not talking the big one at the end. The big one at the end is a trip for you and your husband to Jamaica. I don't know, but 2 a month, I want those. And so you're going to have to tag me and show me that you're celebrating your wins.
Okay, I will. I think you're putting out there too. We've been talking about a 3rd baby for a long time, and then you say Jamaica, and that's where we had our first. So I'm like, maybe we do need to go to Jamaica.
Oh, the universe. Oh, we tried to go to Hawaii for ours, but my body was like, nope, sorry. But we were in Hawaii, so who cares? It was fun. Okay. Lastly, if there was a mantra, one piece of advice or life lesson that you would share with other women listening to this today, who want to create something meaningful for themselves, maybe not a business, but something, what would it be?
A mantra. So one of the mantras I love that's actually posted on my bulletin board is that your competition is not other people. Your competition is your daily habits and your mindset and just, I'm not going to read it word for word, but basically all the limiting features of yourself that you mentally like block yourself from. Like, so my recommendation for any mom listening that's feeling like they don't know what to do is just step back and, like what brings you joy and how can you do more of that, really? And you'd be surprised what comes out of that. Just figuring out what brings you joy, finding more time to do it and prioritize it and be okay and comfortable letting things go so that you can do it. It could bleed into who knows what. Sky is the limit. And that's not saying that you have to go start a business. It's just saying that you're going to do more of what brings you joy and passion in life and not care about what other people think or what your brain's telling you, because that is what ultimately always holds us back is our own mind. It's not anything else. It's just our thoughts that circulate. So the sooner you can realize that and push through it, the better for you.
100%. Oh my gosh. Could not have had a better answer for that. I love everything about it. That's what we do here in the Revitalized Sisterhood. That's the work we do daily. It's all about mindfulness and intentionality. And, I was talking about it's kind of hard. We were talking about this in our call the other night, and it's even if it's harder for me to say to you, what do you want? Or what do you need? Or what brings you joy? Women, maybe they have a harder time accessing that because instead of thinking about what they want or what they need, they think, how would this affect my husband if I say this? How would this affect my kids if I do this? How would this, right? So even if you have to go to the negative, unfortunately, because that's how our brains are wired, say, what don't I like about today? What made me unhappy today? What is irritating me to the, umpteenth degree today? And eliminate it. Figure out a way how to eliminate those first. And I guarantee you, it will bring you joy. I eliminated the ugly, nasty rug in my living room that I've hated forever. And every time I look at it, I hate it. And I replaced it with a stupid, cheap Amazon rug that's amazing. And it brings me so much joy. And now I wasn't thinking, if I get a new rug, this is going to bring me so much joy. All I was thinking is I'm nesting and I'm not bringing a baby into a place that has a rug that's 18 years old and who knows what's growing in it, right? So I'm like, get rid of this, strike a match, burn it. I don't care. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking about what is irritating me. But now every time I see it, it brings me so much joy. Think of those things. Make the list. It's like a pro-con list, right?
Yeah. 100%. And it's crazy how even little things like you just mentioned make such a difference. Like,
Oh my
for
gosh.
me, I'm sorry, but I love some Starbucks coffee. And something about every couple days getting somebody else to make me a $6 coffee.
That's
$7
what it
coffee makes
is.
me
It's
happy.
someone else doing it for you. It feels so good. I'm with
Yeah.
you. I feel that. That's not dumb. I feel that. That's a celebration. There you go. That's a win. All right, lady. Well, I appreciate you. Where can everybody come and find you and do the most to help you and your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at the Little Rad Things on Instagram, littleradthings.com. And then I have my own personal Instagram too at Maddie E. Fero. If you ever need anything or have questions about business, please reach out to either account. It's always me responding. That is something that is going to be the hardest element of my business to ever try to give away. I love connecting with my community. So if you have a question, please reach out to us and we would be honored to serve you and your little ones.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Gina. And I'm so excited for you. You need to send me your address so I can send you some stuff because girls can be rad too.
You're so sweet. Girls definitely can be rad too, for sure. Thanks, lady.